Thank you, Mr. Golombiewski. Senator Murphy?
Mr. Wells, you had alluded to pocket. I know you testified to pocket before, and you mentioned pocket in your pre-trial testimony. Have you done any analysis of this area and this potential tower for pocket?
I have.
And your indication that they were looking to come at 140, is that based at least in part on some work you did with that?
It is, as well as conversations with the engineer responsible for that area.
Do you know what is the lowest that you might need, lowest in height of the tower they might need to?
140 is, I let them know initially that 157 would be available and asked them to provide me a minimum height that they needed. And they came back with 140 feet. We also analyzed, we have done work for them in the past. We took their database and looked at it and confirmed that 140 feet.
And from your analysis, do you concur that 140 is the lowest that you could go?
I do.
You do. This is like, a gold mine, really. We really love to hear what other companies' minimums are, except they don't show up. And then here you are, it's kind of a gift for us for another. So in essence, what you're telling me is if, in all likelihood, if this were a 150-foot tower with AT&T on it and Verizon took 140, probably would that be interested in this particular location?
I wouldn't go as far as to say they wouldn't be interested. This is, as Mr. Blevins outlined some of the history in this area.
Right.
You kind of take what you can get, and it's, it doesn't mean it's going to meet the needs of their network, and they're certainly going to continue to look to fulfill those gaps that happen as you push them down lower. You're always going to give up coverage, but again, when you get to the point of desperation, you take what you can get and try to fix it later. It's not a good scenario because now, certainly there are limited options in this area, and now, where these gaps may occur, now you're limited. Now you have less flexibility in where you can place the next site. And it becomes problematic when you go down lower.
I can appreciate that. And turning to you, Mr. Blevins, knowing that you have two that apparently need 140. So one of them is going to perhaps be 140 and one higher if there is a tower at this location. We can nitpick the propagations, and maybe there's not much of a difference between 150 and 170. But I assume from AT&T's point of view is if there are two coming in that have got to be 140 or above, that you might as well take the top of the heap. Is that basically the philosophy?
True. Certainly don't want to be below Verizon. They have the same technology essentially we have.
And again, just to reinforce, I don't want to minimize Mr. SD's concern, because I get that. Looking at the maps, I understand where his concern is coming from. But having come from, I spent a lot of time with the carriers on the optimization side of this. And when you take a road that's got a lot of traffic, and you got a network that's stretched out, I've spent way too much time driving up and down the same road because I've got a network that's stressed out, maybe not even on that road, but it's trying to cover other areas, which stresses out that particular site you're trying to optimize. And on that road where there's a lot of traffic, it may not be a big gap and it may not be long, but the rest of the network's stressed out. You got 3 sites covering the same area, and maybe why I have no hair. I keep driving up and down that road and looking at the data and trying to optimize through that road because it not only affects that particular road, but the rest of the network, because you're stressing out that site and everything else that's getting in there. And again, I'm not minimizing Mr. SD's concerns, because you can only represent so much in a plot, and I understand the concern, but it's just, we struggle for a way to represent it properly. Just can't put it on a pixel by pixel map with the complexity of the network that you're looking at here. And it has nothing to do with the accuracy of the underlying propagation. It has to do with the complications in running a network like this.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Sure.
Thank you, Senator. And not to stress you out any further, Mr. Lynch, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Perone and let him try and finish up his question.
Mine's an easy question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fisher, are you going to put into evidence Mr. Wells's especially the drive test data you were just talking about, for AT&T, not necessarily for Pocket, because they're not here.
We can certainly do that and provide that information. Are you going to?
If it's available, I think it would be helpful.
We're probably going to have to do it as a late filed exhibit, but we can certainly put it into the record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Now, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Back to the coverage plot showing the proposed site. Does AT&T have plans to cover the two areas in red? One's to the west and one's to the east of the proposed site?
Yes, we certainly do have a plan to cover one to the west, the lower southwest. And then we're also looking at, if we can get 2124 at 170, that area on the upper part there may be adequate without any other cells. So right now, we're looking at covering that southwestern large red block.
Describe what it is and what it has done
For the cell ID? Oh, it's town right, it's right where we are, it's right in the center of town here. So it has to be covered eventually, but we've all tried many times, so it's gonna be a while.
Excuse me, Mr. Brown, but Mr. Golembiewski has a question.
The height of the 2124, would the height there have an effect on the height of the tower that you would be looking for, the search area, I guess, covered to the southwest, I guess, in the vicinity of 114? Would there be any, you know, if the tower was 150 instead of 170, would the tower have to be taller? I mean, is there any, you know, sort of give if you make one tower shorter? Do you have to look for a taller tower to have that overlap you need in a budding area?
Yes, that's what I'm looking at, but I'm looking at the plots. It would appear that 160, 170 wouldn't materially change that. 150 would. Looks like a little redder down in that area. A little more areas of red.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Golembiewski. Mr. Brown.
In the event the backup generator fails to start, about how long would the site be able to operate on battery power?
About 8 hours.
This question is for Mr. Bascom. Would the tower be designed to EIA version F or version G?
We're currently designing to version G.
And would version G be more conservative than F in this case?
Yes, it would.
And that also complies with all the FCC's rules and regulations?
Yes.
Thank you.
And my understanding is version G is still optional and F is the mandatory?
That is correct.
Regarding the tower costs, which I believe is $375K total, does that exclude the $250,000 for antennas and radio equipment?
Yes.
Did you fly a balloon today, and what were the hours of the flight?
The balloon was elevated before noon, and it was supposedly, or it was taken down at 4:30.
Could you describe the weather conditions?
It was a bit breezy all day, so the balloon did hit its maximum height at certain times, but it was also being pushed around a little bit throughout the day.
How many degrees would you say?
We're probably losing 20 foot or so of the actual height of the tower during the breeze.
Thank you.
And the color and diameter of the balloon?
A red balloon, 5-foot diameter.
But did it reach its proposed height for much of the time?
The majority of the time it did not.
when you did your, your balloon flight from which computer-generated models are shown on the application, those were at 170, correct?
That is correct. We would award the flight.
Thank you.
My last questions are centered around the new view shed map. What are the nearest historic sites to the proposed tower, and could you describe the visibility?
The nearest historic site with a view is the Darling House, which is shown as H02, and it's represented by view 5 in the view shed analysis. So if you look at that view 5, you can see that, and that's pretty typical along that stretch of Litchfield Turnpike, but you can see that the tower is visible above the tree height there, and that's shown as view 5.
And labeled on here H05, which is the kiln and quarry. I understand that's in the red area of year-round visibility. Could you estimate roughly how much of the tower you think would be visible from there?
Yeah, I believe that you would have the same type of visibility from that area. And the kiln is closer than the Darling House.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crone. Dr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bascom, did Cloak Harbor measure the height of the tree canopy as part of its field analysis?
I don't believe that we did.
Okay, Mr. Blevins, first of all, I just want to say thank you for doing a better job with synchronizing the plots that we were given and giving the dates. We've had other conversation about the plots today, but I do thank you for paying attention to some problems we had before. My question. In the application on page 4 and also in tab 1, there's a mention of Dillon Road being a goal for coverage. Is that correct? Dillon Road.
That's right past my house.
I know where Dillon Road is. I'm asking the question because the application is stressing Dillon Road, and I'm asking if that's correct. I think it may not be correct.
It's a smaller road, but it does connect 69 and 63.
Yes, the context of my question is that elsewhere, in your pre-file testimony, in Mr. Wells's pre-file testimony, and also in the coverage maps, Downs Road seems to be the goal for coverage. And Downs Road is also identified on those maps, as I said. So I'm wondering why the application is stressing Dillon Road and not Downs Road.
It was just the way it was identified, I believe. Probably different time from the questions to the original filings.
So is it Downs Road or Dillon Road that is the primary object of coverage to the north and slightly east?
Actually, Downs Road would appear to be the larger of the two. And of course, Route 69 is an offshoot from 69. So.
Would it be correct to assume that you want to cover a larger area, therefore you would be trying to cover Downs Road more than Dillon Road? Dillon Road is very near to the tower. It's obvious that's going to be covered.
Right.
If you're making an effort to spread out coverage, you would want to cover Downs Road more likely. Would I be correct in thinking that?
Yes, we're trying to cover up into, ultimately get the whole path between New Haven and Waterbury covered. This is a major connection between New Haven and Waterbury. I've done it many times myself.
Okay. Next question, the last question. In your answer to the council's question number 8, you have a table of nearby towers. Do you see where that is?
Yes.
Are the locations of number 5632 and 2010 and 5164, which are on the table, are those locations with respect to the proposed tower correct? They don't look correct to me because the table for those particular towers, there are 5 towers for 3 that are mentioned. It seems to be backwards.
Yes, certainly 5632 should be north-northwest, not north-northeast. And let's see. Yeah, same thing with 2010, it should be southwest. Or maybe almost due south. And that should be southeast, that should have been reversed. Yeah, you're correct.
So the direction of my question is, given that table is incorrect, but the maps are all different and are what you say is correct. My question is there any confusion because of the problem with the table in the actual maps and the coverage plots?
No, the maps are accurate, and the distances are accurate, it's just the dating is incorrect.
Okay.
And I don't know why that is. It's a bad day.
Okay. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Could I get back to the tree question? I apologize.
Sorry.
In the earth, when you asked it, if we shot the elevation, we did not. But I can better estimate it from the photo sims, estimate the tree canopy. Looking at the closest view, view 2, we know that the antenna sets are 40 feet because we had 4 at 10 feet. So it appears that approximately 80 foot of the tower is visible above the tree line. So the trees, I may have underestimated in the field, the trees are closer to 90 feet in height of the location of the tower.
Well, actually, thank you for that. That's what I asked you at the site visit, and you gave me that estimate. You said you thought they were 90 feet, and perhaps they were 80 feet. But my question this afternoon wasn't that same question.
Okay.
My question this afternoon was, in describing your methodology, you said that you started out estimating the tree canopy at 70 feet for the purpose of doing your visual studies. What I was asking was, did you ever test that estimate that you put into the computer at 70 feet? Did you ever go out in the field and actually test that and then go back and tune the visibility model with a measured figure? I'm talking now overall. I'm not talking about just the trees at the site of the tower.
And I'll just quickly say that the tree canopy we use as an assumption, which is part of it, that the council approves, is 65 feet. And so that goes into the model. 65 feet is what's approved by the council. So we confirm visual in the field. We don't go back and shoot tree height and redo the model based on the actual tree height.
I believe that you're in this visibility report.
My money's on Dr. Galvin.
So is mine, Mr. Chairman.
No, actually, this time, I was wrong. You do say 65 feet.
Yeah, that's our current, that's what we typically use and the council typically accepts. It's more conservative, but we confirm in the field with visuals.
Okay, so you do confirm in the field. You did confirm in the field.
Always.
Okay, that I don't believe is in your description of your methodology.
It's the following paragraph. I believe.
It says, will be verified.
It's the next page. On 5.0.
Okay. Thank you for returning me to that part of my question. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I don't know, but I'm canceling the Seabiscuit in the 5th at Hialeah tomorrow. Mr. Ashton.
Thank you. Going back to the possibility of an additional tower towards the center of Woodbridge, have you I know you haven't got a site, but have you got any kind of a feel for whether a tower that is in that area would reach and cover the area you're concerned about, Mr. Blowman, on Route 63? As I look at the topographic map, it slopes, the area that we're talking about, slopes gently to the south and gently to the east a little bit. And so a structure somewhere up in the center of that red area, would that cover Route 63? Are we betting our horse on the structure before us where the structure to come may be a better bet? I know we haven't got it down, but looking at it.
Right now, it's certainly possible, given the right location in that redded area there in the center of town. Yes, it could very well do 63. The problem is, we're not betting on it.
Let me turn to a different topic entirely. I understand that a tower in the valley is going to have a tough time covering the areas you want. I understand the area you propose a tower does. We haven't talked much about the opposite side of the valley. There are some structures up on West Rock Ridge. They're just a little bit over the east, I believe. And is there any consideration given to mounting a very low structure up on West Rock Ridge that would work to the west and north and south?
Building a new structure in West Rock? I don't believe we entertain that. We already have existing towers on those existing sites on top of that tower on top of West Rock Ridge.
Is that 2013 you're talking about?
It's actually underneath 20, yes, it is 2013,
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm going about a mile and a half north.
Yes,
of that
no,
blue area.
we did not. That's state land again, we're not supposed to.
Well, it's not watershed though.
No, but
I don't know whether Mr. Kalambuski's got a key to open that up or not. It is open already to an extent.
Yes.
There are structures in that land.
Actually, we have a letter, I think, now that's part of don't we take administrative notice that no DEP property for something?
I'm sorry, Brian?
Administrative notice, there's a letter DEP wrote actually to Mr. Fisher, I believe, saying that we're not going to permit towers on our property.
Item 15.
Even though there's some existing there already?
Yes.
Those are on in-holdings which are not owned by the state or the park. We put one there near the tunnel maybe 20 years ago.
This is up further north.
Yeah, but all I'm saying, there's in-holdings.
If I might also, from an art perspective, if I have the location correct, along that ridge, if you look, two things with that. The first one I'm not entirely sure of, not having propagated it out, but I suspect that there will be a problem. Well, there's considerable height there. I think there may be a problem going west and covering into 63 because you're going over, again, you're going over that ridge that's to the west and then trying to get back down again. And again, there may be enough height. I doubt it. I'd have to look at that closer. But my other prime concern from a network operator would be also what's going on at the east. If you go up on that ridge, RF is a very tough thing to control. If you go up on that ridge and you look east of that ridge, that terrain drops off sharply, and there's a lot of sites in that area that are going to be interfered with, especially along the Merritt, along Route 15.
Yet there's a considerable area of poor coverage on the east side of that ridge. That's what I'm seeing from the current coverage plus proposed. Wow.
Right. Yeah, and from a pure coverage standpoint, certainly along that area, that would fill in the gap. But again,
Have you looked at the UI line which goes from Glen Lake Junction, about a half an inch north of, on the view shed map, about a half inch north of Glen Lake, is a line, an electric transmission line. The main lines go north-south, but there's one that breaks off at that point and goes due east, across the valley, and then up over the cliff, up over West Rock Ridge. Do you know if there's any land associated with UI's line that might be usable?
maybe a good Mr. Day.
I don't know about that area there, north of where you're pointing out that one I'm looking on the map. I have not looked up there.
'Cause I don't know whether UI owns that, we call it right-of-way, but it may be owned in fee, or maybe just a right-of-way.
We can certainly try to find out the answer to that, as to the underlying fee of that line.
I'd be interested in whether there's any possibility there. If you've heard of
I think if we looked at that, and that's where Mr. Levin's joint jumped in, but I think if we did look at that, it may look well placed, especially as you mentioned the areas to the east. Again, I would still want to be off of that ridge because of the interference issues, but there might be something east, and then we would also be looking west to replace this site.
I don't know how to address it. I'm not asking you to submit another application, but I am asking to test the possibilities, whether it offers anything.
We can certainly do that.
And if
And
DEP is in the way, then tell us.
I think Mr. Tate and Mr. Galbucci identified the sites to the south that have been there and effectively predate some of this. And going forward, there's a real issue under the state statute. And the one other issue that Mr. Blevins touched on briefly in his conversation with you to the west, in this red area to the west. Many of us on the panel have been aware of this over the years. That's an area in town that I have to bring to the council's attention, that the town itself has gone on, it's had its own cell tower committee for over a decade. I've been in town a few different times on a proposal here at Town Hall that's never really gone forward. The town itself actually reached out to the council, and there was a public coverage assessment done. That's in the record, which we identified. So this red area that you see on the map to the west, this has been a decade-plus effort, I think, between everybody involved to try to find some solution. None has been found.
Yeah, I understand that's going to take a lot of massaging, and it's different from West Rock Ridge. It absolutely is. What will happen with that. Thank you. Nothing further. No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. And thank you, Senator Murphy. Noting the hour, noting that we wish to resume at 7 for the public comment portion of this hearing. Why don't we stand in recess and reconvene at 7 o'clock? Thank you.